Well, as the year comes to an end, things aren't looking too good for President Joe Biden. Even his good friends at CNN have got bad news for him.
We have new CNN poll numbers this morning in two critical battleground states. The news is not great for President Biden and his campaign. The numbers show Donald Trump leading in both Georgia and Michigan. In Georgia, a state Biden carried by a very narrow margin in 2020, registered voters say they prefer Trump over Biden by 5%.
Oh, dear. I caught up with Kristin Tate in the US to discuss how the president goes into what the Americans call the holiday season with some really ominous polling.
Yes, and I've been reading reports all week for the last week that Biden and his administration, they are getting very nervous by these polls. What's happening here, Chris, is that this election is becoming a referendum on Joe Biden. And up until now, the Democrats have been counting on this being a referendum on Donald Trump, as it was in 2020. They won that election by whipping up the public into this frenzy over Donald Trump being a threat to democracy and, the insurrection of January 6th. And at this point, they have been panicking constantly every day for years. Like, people hear this stuff now about threats to democracy and Donald Trump, and they just kind of yawn and roll their eyes. And instead, they're thinking about the fact that every time they go to the grocery store, they can barely afford to buy, milk and chicken for dinner. The Joe Biden administration has made life in the United States worse in every measurable way. And that is what this election has become about. And at the same time, of course, as we talk about all the time on the show, Joe Biden is, becoming more entrenched by the day in his family scandals. So it's not looking good for Joe Biden.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, those cost of living issues always bite hard in politics. We're seeing that play out in Australia this year as well. But we keep talking also about how Joe Biden is so accident prone. And I've got to show this clip where Joe Biden is just going to his car and the reporter's yelling out to him that he's looking like he's got a lot of trouble in the polls. He tells them that they're reading the polls all wrong. And then we have an accident. Have a look.
Mr. President, why are you losing to Trump in the polls?
Yeah, Kristin, and a car crashed into the back of the presidential motorcade. It's all okay. You can see the Secret Service officers are worried, of course, as you are in this day and age. But it's just typical of Joe Biden, isn't it, at the moment? The polls plunging, him in denial, and boom, crash.
Yes, it's very emblematic for what's going on right now with this president. I know people in Democrat elite circles are just desperate to get him to step aside and replace him with somebody. And that very well may happen, which I know has been your prediction, Chris. But there is a chance that this man is just so desperate to cling on to power that he'll refuse to step aside. I mean, Joe Biden has wanted to become president since he was, born. The day he was born, he wanted to become president, it seems. So I'm not sure he's going to step aside so easily. We'll find out. But if he wants to stay and he refuses to go, the Democrats have a real problem. And the only thing they can do is just try to make Trump so terrifying to suburban voters and independents that they will just hold their nose and vote for Biden. But I'm just not sure that's going to work this time around like it did last time.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a year, of course, Kristin. We've talked about every twist along the road. I suppose the highlights have been the political turmoil with the former president and Republican frontrunner Donald Trump turning up in court facing those prosecutions. There was the drama on the Hill with the speaker being tossed aside, of course. But the real theme of the year has been the mental decline of the president, Joe Biden. Just time and time again, he looks uncertain, confused and befuddled. Here's a little collection.
The Grand Canyon, one of the Earth's 9 wonders of the world. Literally. Over $1.3 billion. And I love your ears. I love them. They're really cool. What's your name?
Jasmine.
If it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway.
Oh, just some of the highlights, Kristin. There'll be more to come. So Tell us, as you say, there's pressure on Joe Biden. Some Democrats, many Democrats, polls show would prefer he steps aside and they get another candidate. But what do you say after such a tumultuous year? What are you predicting for 2024, the election year?
Look, I've actually come around to your view on this, Chris. I suspect that, at the last minute, the Democrats are going to force Biden aside and that they will replace him with someone fresh like Gavin Newsom, who will be able to trick essentially Americans into voting for the same left-wing nonsense that has destroyed this country under Joe Biden. Someone like Newsom would, appear to be a break from the constant chaos that people perceive surrounding the other two candidates, Trump and Biden. And, if they do it last minute like that, it gives Republicans far less time to dig up dirt on Newsom and run against him. So that's certainly what they want. And they gave Gavin Newsom a test when they put him on Fox News here in the United States and actually had him debate Ron DeSantis. Gavin Newsom did a very good job. He's very slick at, presenting these really disastrous policies that have destroyed his state of California, where he's governor, as being wonderful and empowering. And I've come around to your view on that, Chris. I truly believe that Joe Biden will not be the nominee. He just does not have the physical or mental strength at this point. And it's gotten to the point where people I know, even staunch Biden supporters, just cringe every time they hear him talk. And they feel bad for him. I mean, this is a man who should be enjoying his last years with his grandchildren. And instead, he's being wheeled out in front of the country to be laughed at because he can't even get through a sentence of English.
We shall see, Kristin. You have yourself a good Christmas and New Year, and I can't wait to catch up and see what unfolds in 2024, the election year.
Thank you very much, Chris. Merry Christmas.